John, the son of free black parents, who sent him as a child to Kansas from Virginia to avoid capture and enslavement, opened a barber shop in Rogers Park in 1886. It was a continuation of the profession in which he had trained after fighting in an all-black regiment of the Union Army, which he had joined at age 15 during the Civil War. Amanda worked as a dressmaker for department stores such as Marshall Field's. She and John had 5 more children in Chicago. As the only black family in their neighborhood, they did face prejudice. Amanda is said to have always carried a handgun in her pocket when she answered the door. Nevertheless, their children flourished. Naomi was probably the first black woman to graduate from nearby Northwestern University as an undergraduate in 1905. She became a librarian and was also active in various activist organizations such as the League of Women Voters and the Urban League, according to Vitali. Little is known about Ruth, who worked as a secretary and lived in the Rogers Park home her whole life. The final sister, Artemisia, spellings vary, was the first licensed black nurse in Illinois who operated a practice out of her father's barbershop. Their brother Luther also eventually held an office in the location of John's barbershop, RPWRHS believes. Early on, he worked as a producer and director for the white-owned Ebony Film Corporation, which operated in Logan Square and produced race films, primarily for and by African Americans. Luther employed his brother Franklin as an actor in several silent films. Ebony closed in 1919 after making about 20 films, and Luther went on to become a successful businessman, living in the Lunt Avenue home until he died. He and his wife were the last Pollards to live in the house.
Luther Pollard, the founder of Ebony, was born 2 years after the United States celebrated its centennial. As a boy, he saw no motion pictures. The camera that could take them wasn't even invented.
My father was the owner of a 10-chair barber shop in the Ringo House in Mexico, Missouri, where I was born. He practically gave the business away and came to Chicago hoping to get in the vicinity of Evanston because of Northwestern. And he was looking for a place to settle and open up a barber shop. So he came to Rogers Park. I think that was about 1885 or 84. I was a kid about 6 or 7 years old. I first went to the district school in Rose Hill. They call it Edgewater now. It was a one-room affair, a big stove up in the middle. And all classes were in that one room. Quite a number of the kids couldn't speak English. They were German descent. I remember the teacher's name was McGuire, Miss McGuire.
Hughes also went into entertainment, playing as a drummer in a jazz band that toured internationally before dying while fighting for France in World War I, according to the RPWRHS. All the brothers played football and other sports, but Leslie continued with athletics to become a sports writer. And Frederick Douglass Fritz Pollard rode the sport to stardom. He excelled as an athlete at Lane Tech High School, then went on to Brown University, where he led their football team to a Rose Bowl victory. He joined the Akron Indians in 1919 after serving in World War I. The following year, the team changed its name to the Pros and joined other Midwestern teams to form what would eventually become the National Football League. Fritz was appointed coach of the Pros in 1921 and recruited a young Paul Robeson to play on the team that year. It would be decades before another African-American served as head coach of a professional football team, until Art Shell became head coach of the Raiders in 1989. Over the following years, Fritz played for and coached several early National Football League teams, including the Milwaukee Badgers, the Hammond Professionals, and the Providence Steamroller. He organized and coached the all-black Chicago Blackhawks in 1928.
I think I'm a very, very fortunate man, and I'm still able to get around and very thankful that I'm alive enough to be able to have my picture taken and you gentlemen to come and see me.
In 1974, NFL Films visited Fritz. Most of that interview was never used until now.
My father was a great champion boxer in the Civil War days. And he learned the barber trade, and he moved up to a place called Rogers Park, way on the north side of Chicago, a suburb of Chicago.
Rogers Park was all German. My people were the only blacks in the area. They were the only blacks in the schools.
They were Americans, and they were not going to be confined, and they were not going to be marginalized just because their skin happened to be black.
When we went out for the football team down at Lane Tech High School, my brother said, "Say, where's my kid brother? You haven't given him a chance." He said, "Well, I'm not going to play unless you give my kid brother a chance to play." So they gave me, because of my brother, they gave me a chance to play in at 89 pounds on this Lane Tech High School football team.
In 4 years, Fritz gained 60 pounds and a place on the Cook County All-Star team, a first for a young man of color.
There were people in Chicago talked with my mother and tried to get me to go to Brown University.
So it's an interesting kind of history that almost no blacks were ever allowed to go to, quote, white colleges. So the fact that Fritz Pollard did and had done so well is extraordinary.
He would break on the scene against Harvard and Yale. And of course, at that time, it's hard to explain today because these teams are not very powerful anymore. They were college football. Pollard, in effect, ran wild against both of them. It was a revelation that this young black man who was so small could do this. All of a sudden, he went from a very marginal player to one that was getting national recognition.
But his dreams were even bigger.
He was a hero. My father was a hero. When Brown beat Yale, that was all that they needed to write. Pollard beat Yale. They give him anything he wanted. Anything.
One reward was a trip on a cross-country Pullman to play in the first ever Rose Bowl.
Of course, at that time, it was very unusual for any black person, much less a young athlete, to be on a Pullman car. The Pullman porters wouldn't serve Pollard. Some of the hotels wouldn't accept him when they got on the West Coast. So it was more than just football. It was testing, again, the racial barriers that this Rose Bowl game. But it did give him a lot of visibility.
Brown lost to Washington that day, but Fritz Pollard had already earned the greater victory. For the first time, a black man could claim the title All-American. His rise from Rogers Park had been swift, but the biggest challenge lay just ahead.